And so it's so exciting. It's so ridiculously exciting to go everywhere around the world and to go into airports or to walk down the street and have people come up and say, I've been watching you on YouTube. They often mention you. I've been listening to what you say. I've been developing a vision for my life. It's really helped me out a lot. Thanks a lot. You know, they had to make a deal with the devil, so to speak. I've talked to 250,000 people in 7 months. We haven't had one incident that was negative in that entire time. Not one. Nothing. No misbehavior on anyone's part. You know, I look at that and I think, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. But we had one heckler who was obviously not a fan of mine, given that he was a heckler. That was it. Other than that, the audiences behaved perfectly. But I do think there's a deeper question here. If there's winners, there has to be losers, and the reason that there are losers is because there's winners. It's like, no, it isn't. It's something way more pernicious than that. It doesn't matter. As soon as you set up an arbitrary value structure, you get a hierarchy. Then there's the whole schlubs at the bottom that can't put a ball in the hoop to save their lives. It's very necessary if you're dealing intelligently with a true monster that you give the devil his due. So like if you look at Neolithic grave sites way before there was capitalism, you see that a small number of people are buried with all the gold. What is it, 1.2 billion? Like what the hell? Then why is that all of a sudden supposed to be a bad thing? Well, you've got a few billion, you could spread the damn things around. It's not fair that you're the only one that's being listened to. That's a stupid suggestion. Either. No, and this is actually a really big deal. It's a really big deal. I had a friend who once told me that if something's impossible, then it won't happen. If it turns out that everyone wants that, well, what's wrong with that? You know, and that's another thing that I've been trying to lecture to people about, is that you should be very careful about assuming that someone else has more than you do. And I don't want to talk about this in much detail because it's really complicated. You don't have to scratch beneath the surface very far, even in successful people's lives, until you find a pretty decent vein of tragedy. Your moral duty is to realize the archetype in the confines of your own life. Celebrity and fame and fortune are also not that easy to deal with, and they come with their own pitfalls. Plus, there's lots of things they don't protect you against. You make that claim because you want to justify your claim that there's absolutely nothing wrong with making over humanity in the image of your ideology. It's like, well, who's got it better? You want to be rich and old or young and poor? You know, I mean, you can't buy youth with money. So it isn't obvious who's better off in a situation like that. It's in fact, I think most people who are old and rich would trade it for young and poor fairly damn quickly. People are actually not as resentful about the success of others as you might expect. They're resentful about it if they feel that the game is fixed. You're ignorant about yourself. The problem is that some of them, although not all, some of them are fixing the game. And no one's happy about that. And no wonder, you know, and why am I even playing into this? Like, obviously. It's just a sign of how pathological our times have become, in some sense, that there would have been any guilt about that to begin with. Look, you know, you're a blind tyrant, and nature is moving away from us and preparing her revenge, and you better watch the hell out because you're violating the intrinsic moral norms and you're going to pay for it. Well, I think that it's a quick route to moral virtue. Things in the future could be way better than they are right now. Radically, and they could be way worse than they are. And the small decisions that people make are going to have outsized effects while they make them. I don't buy any of that. I think it's Cain and Abel all the way down. We inhabit the collective, and that's what's already known, what we can agree on. But the problem with that is that what we can agree on, what's already known, isn't sufficient. Because we still have problems. Things are complicated. It's hard to make complicated systems work better. Hey, I'm stuck at zero. Well, I'd rather be with the romantic who's burning the whole thing to the ground than to just, you know, to stay locked in my immobile position. The most annoying person who's successful is the person who deserves it, not the person who doesn't deserve it. That son of a bitch has more than me, so let's cut him off at the knees. I have the opportunity to learn from you, and you have the opportunity to learn from me, and you have the opportunity to learn from your own mistakes and social feedback, and so do I. And negotiation beats war. If that means that, you know, we're dancing in the streets because everything's on fire, that'll be just fine. When the revolution comes, you can bloody well be sure that your head's going to be first on the chopping block. I think we've already figured out everyone. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Oh.